I'm going to show you a little boogie-woogie pattern like I played just there that you can play over a 12-bar blues in the key of C. There's some tablature that I'm going to put up on the screen as we play through it slowly, and you can also download the tablature from the link in the description. Before we start though, let's just get a 12-bar blues in C in our head. So if somebody's strumming these chords, they're going to play 4 bars of C. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That last bar of C though often turns into a C7 just to lead us to the next line. So that's 4 of our 12 bars. The next line will have an F chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. For 2 bars, 2, 3, 4. And a C again for 2 bars. That's 8 bars. Our last line, there can be some variations here. You could have G7 for 2 bars and C for 2 bars. And often right at the end, we have a quick G7 for the last couple of beats if we're going to loop round and do it again. One of the variations there is instead of doing 2 bars of G7, we might do G7 for 1 bar, F for 1 bar, and then C. And we might stay on the C, or we might do a little G7 on the end, only when we're going round again, not when we're going to stop. The good news is this pattern will work whether we do 2 bars of G7 on the last line to the C, or whether we choose to do G7 for 1 bar, F for 1 bar, and then the C. This pattern will work over either of those chords. There's the first bit of the tablature on the screen, and it's important that when we play this, we don't play it exactly as written, but we play it with a swing feel. If we play it as written, it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and actually what we want is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Often we don't write it out exactly like that because it makes it quite difficult to read. There's lots of dots and extra flags on notes and things like that. So we just write swing feel at the beginning, but that's really important to getting the feel of this right. Here's our first little pattern. We're going to play almost all of the time. These notes are in pairs, so we play 2 of each note. There are only a few times where we don't. In this first bar is one of the times where we don't. We're going to play the C string open twice. Then we're going to play the 3rd fret on the C string, and instead of playing that one twice, we then slide it up to the 4th fret. Now it's up to you whether you pluck both of those or pluck the first one and then slide, or pluck and hammer on. Then we go to the 3rd fret of the E string, 2 of those, 2 of our open A string, 3rd fret on the A string, open A string again, 3rd fret on the E string again, open E string again. And that pattern is one that you'll hear in lots of rhythm and blues and boogie-woogie kind of music. You can play that one over the C chord as many times as you want. If you have a song where the C chord lasts for bars upon bars upon bars, you can keep looping around that. It's like this. I'll do it again. Notice that dum ba bum ba bum ba bum like a heartbeat, swing feel. Here's the next 2 bars, and it starts off the same. But here it's a little bit different. Now I've written C7 as the chord over this bit. The person playing the chords doesn't have to play a C7 here. We're going to turn it into a C7, though they can if they want. We're going to play a slightly different pattern that uses this note at the 1st fret, and of course that note is in a C7 chord, so it'll start to add a bit of tension. 1st fret, open on the A string, 3rd fret on the E string, open on the E string. And then we've got to the end of the first line. The nice thing about this is that first pattern that we could loop round has a little variation at the end that starts to set us up, makes us feel like we want to move to the F chord. So here's the whole of the first line. And now we're going to go on to the second line when the chord changes to F for 2 bars. And we're going to start on the note of F, which is the first fret of your E string. And we go first fret E string, open A string, and while we're moving to that open A string, it gives us a chance to move our hand up the neck to get ready to play the first finger on the 3rd fret. Now that seems a bit weird, but we're going to go higher up the neck, so we're going to use this as a position shift. Take that finger off when you've played that note twice, first fret on the E string. Play the A string twice, and as you're doing it, move your hand up and play the 3rd fret twice on the A string with your index finger. Then you can put your ring finger down on the 5th fret of the A string and your little finger down on the 6th fret. Then we go back down again, 5th, 3rd, open. And then this next bit should look very familiar. The chord has now changed back to C. Yep, it's the same as the first 2 bars. So let's play the second line. Right, 2/3 of the way through. On the last line, we're going to a G7 chord, and we're going to do a slightly different pattern here. We're going to actually start on the 2nd fret of the C string, which isn't the note of G. On this one, we're actually starting on a different note, but that note still belongs in a G7 chord, that note there. And we play that one twice. Then onto the E string, open, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and then we're going back down again, but we're going to miss out the 2nd fret. So we've gone open, 1, 2, 3, back to 1, open, back to the 2nd fret on the C string we started on, and then in the last bar we're going to start it with a C note. So we'll get that far. So when we get to this G7, it sounds like this. And then, now we're going to do a little sort of turnaround kind of little riff. Just the middle 2 strings, we're going to play with our index finger on the 3rd fret of the E string and our 2nd finger on the 4th fret of the C string. It's like playing a G7 chord, but getting rid of the ring finger, that's the finger shape, and then slide this up 2 frets. So we're on 4 and 3. So to start with, 2 open C strings, then that little chord twice, then we slide it down 1 fret, 1 more, then take them off and just play the middle 2 strings. And then, if we want to, we can put a G7 on the end. And I've put that G7 a little early. Instead of being on the 3rd beat, like 1, 2, 3, 4, which sounds a little bit square, I've gone 1, 2, and 3, 4. I've pushed it ahead a bit. But you can play around with that. Here's the whole of the last line, then we'll play the whole thing through together. Go back to the top and start all over again. So here we go, nice and slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to the top, etc. It's a fun little thing to do, and it makes for a really exciting little pattern that drives the song along when everybody else might just be playing those simple chords of C, F and G7. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.